Visibility of what's happening in the automation market is hard to find. You have SDA, RBPO, RPA, AI, cognitive, and a whole alphabet soup of three-letter acronyms that mean bugger all to most business people. I'm here to shed a little light on what's actually happening. How can I know? It's because we're seeing the development and scaling of the RPA market from the cockpit. We're currently getting contacted before anyone else by companies looking to automate, but more of that when we get to the three buckets. I'll start with a simple truism. UiPath is not a technology solution that is sold to IT departments. The earliest adopters of automation ran pilots with competitors who play nice with IT. They were techies and buying from techies. That's why that particular company bangs on about compliance and governance as being the be-all and end-all. But it's not. RPA was originally created out of scripts, macros, and screen scraping, possibly built on object-oriented software platforms. Does today's business buyer care about this? No. Today's RPA buyer comes from the business. Their initial focus is on decreasing cost and increasing efficiency, because that's what their boards require of them. That's not to say that UiPath technology is not up to snuff. I'm the only person in the industry that actively tells prospective clients to check out the other three credible technologies. I can say this because we have yet to lose a technical evaluation or RFP when IT departments compare the products of different vendors. So although we sell to business, technology likes us too. After all, better technology leads to better business. So we may be an enterprise software business, but we think, act and sell like a services business because that's what our customers and partners expect. In many ways, the growth of the RPA is mimicking the growth of BPO and shared services 20 years ago, but it is highly accelerated. In fact, it's accelerating so fast that a strange thing is happening with funding. One would expect that in what is essentially a nascent market, that the funding would come from the tier 2 and 3 venture capital and private equity houses. But what's actually sniffing around are the likes of General Atlantic Partners and KKR, who would not normally get out of bed for less than $100 million. Companies like UiPath, which wouldn't even have been on the radar of these giants, are suddenly interesting, in the same way that the early BPO companies that they backed were interesting. Putting that, frankly, scary thought aside, what are customers and clients and partners actually doing with UiPath software? Well, many of them are switching to UiPath from the alternatives after successful pilots and proofs of concept. Yes, after successful pilots. The reason for this is that as soon as companies achieve a successful POC, they want to scale. But scaling with technology when the latest edition of the software is 3 years old, or where it takes 2 engineers from another competitor 9 days to automate a process that one of our devs managed in less than 2 days. It's not surprising that when you want to automate, for example, 40 processes that have previously been offshore to an Indian outsourcing service provider, the speed and ease with which you can do it has a material impact on the successful delivery of the business case. And delivering against the business case is what the business needs and wants. But we can go further. Our recommendation is to automate the back office function that aligns directly with the front office activity that feeds it. In that way, not only do you get the cost reduction and efficiency gains in the back office, but by moving the people that were released from the drudgery of manual transaction processing into the front office and using UiPath front office robots to augment call center and agent tasks, our customers are able to double the delta and benefit. Seamless access to customer data drives increased customer experience, increased ability to on-sell and upsell additional services, and decreased churn, which of course is particularly important within the banking, telco, insurance and utilities markets, which, let's face it, have not been traditionally renowned for their fabulous customer experience. Despite all the horror stories in the press about how the future of work actually equates to mass unemployment, we are not seeing significant redundancies as a result of our automation projects. Clients are simply moving those people affected onto higher value tasks. In other words, doing stuff that they just couldn't do before. Let me give you a really simple example of how far we've come. On Monday, I was briefing Kathy Turnbull of Gartner on our progress. We've closed out our Q1 with revenues that exceeded the whole of 2015, so not bad. And she delivered this bombshell. Gartner has cancelled its F&A BPO Magic Quadrant for 2016 because, as Kathy said, unless BPO involves automation, it's become irrelevant. That bears repeating. Unless BPO involves automation, it's become irrelevant. Suddenly, the Gartner hype cycle, which was supposed to be the topic of this event, doesn't quite cover the fundamental change we're experiencing. For our consulting partners like Accenture and Deloitte, this is manifesting itself by them potentially wanting to take a minority stake in UiPath. And although any IPO, and no, we're not going to IPO when our revenues are still in single digits, or trade sale will be conservatively providing them 5 to 8x returns, what really turns them on is the pull-through of consulting revenue. There are even races between different countries and individual partners over who holds the relationships with us. All of this is accelerating UiPath adoption. So let's move on to the buckets of activity. The first bucket consists of the most mature shared service, captive and GBS operations. They've been buying licenses and building up their own centers of excellence. They don't need any external help because they have all of the process improvement, process mapping and Lean Six Sigma skills necessary to build their own capability in RPA. And they see automation as the next logical step for their organizations. The numbers in this bucket are quite small. It's the P&Gs, the Annexes, the Philips of this world. The second bucket is the biggest, and this is where we're seeing most activity. This bucket consists of organizations that want to automate but don't have the capability in-house. They don't necessarily have their processes mapped. They don't have the black belts to look at process improvements. They may have outsourced and gutted their retained organizations, so they don't have the skills anymore. For these companies, we're recommending that they use external parties and, depending on the geography, the industry in which they operate and the service lane they want to automate, we've got a number of partners that we recommend they talk to, ranging from the very large like Accenture, HP or Capgemini, down to the smaller specialized RPA implementers like Symphony or Gen4. The third bucket holds the BPO providers who in 2014 and 15 were using UiPath to reduce their cost to serve, but which are now going to market with automation as a service, particularly as UiPath is the only RPA technology which operates seamlessly over Citrix. As an example, one BPO partner has previously used one of the other vendors to automate a relatively simple process, but because of Citrix, it took 9 hours of coding to complete. Using UiPath, it took 16 minutes to automate the same process. And needless to say, that particular BPO company now only uses us. How does AI and digitization fit into the scheme of things? Some partners are using two different technologies. Capgemini, for instance, is using Celoton for the digitization and UiPath for the RPA for all of their client work. With one of our insurance clients, we're moving the processing upstream directly by using a combination of industry-standard OCR with Google's algorithms to turn their unstructured data into structured data that our RPA robots can then transact. One company in the AI space, which had previously, and rather ironically, used people to do this in a crowdsourcing way, have been saying that RPA is unimportant if one has the cognitive element. Of course they would say that because they don't have an RPA capability. But with us now building machine learning and using open source and readily available tools rather than reinventing the wheel, we will be the only automation vendor who can deal with processes from end to end, regardless of whether process data is ready for the robots or not. Speaking of new, our new server product called Orchestrator was officially released on Monday. It not only reduces the dependencies by half, but we've also built Elasticsearch into it by default. What this means is that our customers and partners can do big data analytics on the fly and without the need to purchase separate analytics platform. This indeed is big data, big news, as it allows patterns of behavior to be identified natively to counter fraud in banks and insurance companies and help meet the ever stricter compliance rules in other heavily regulated industries. When I came into the automation market, I assumed that it would be sold and delivered in the same way and to the same clients who have bought BPO. But what we're seeing is that it's the industry-specific processes that clients want to scale quickly. Claims processing, securities processing and fund administration, order processing, fare distribution, etc. rather than the more traditional areas provided by outsourcing and shared service operations in F&A, procurement and HR. These industry-specific processes are more attractive in the short term because they tend to run on old technology. The processes have not been optimized or commoditized precisely because the processes are not generic. And companies have just thrown bodies at the problem as there's been no real technology solution. What's particularly interesting is that one of the smartest consulting companies is now looking to UiPath to help them to build an industry-specific verticalized offering in mortgage processing. They will take the operation from one of the US's largest banks, and instead of just outsourcing it, they'll partner to share the investments and returns using UiPath as the tool to bring on additional business from other mortgage providers. Well, I've banged on for a bit. And before I finish and move to questions, I have a call to action. Download the UiPath software for free, and yes, this QR code will work, and have a play. Further, over the summer, all of our online training will be made available free to everyone. As part of that training, you will have the opportunity to automate processes in a mini POC or pilot, and we or our partners will support you free of charge. What we're then expecting to see is hundreds, if not thousands, of use cases across geography, industry, and service line. For the service providers and consultants, partner with us and cherry-pick the companies that most closely align with your capabilities. For you corporate business users, try us or talk to one of our current customers. I know it's a bit of a curse, but we do indeed seem to be living in exciting times. Thank you.